I'm in the biggest phase of growth of my career. Kind of figuring out what I want to do. And I'm really, for the first time ever, managing the business. All right, my friends, the Ultimate OD Podcast. Very fun episode for you today. So I'm getting back into coaching. When I'm trying to coach athletes, I thought long and hard about what kind of effect I wanted to have on their lives. What kind of information or wisdom could I impart on them? And from that, I have 5 things that I think you can apply to every aspect of your life and make it better. Have more purpose, give you that joy that you've been looking for. I have the closing thought of the episode. This is the Ultimate OD Podcast. Here we go. All right, my friends, the Ultimate OD Podcast. Some news, notes, things to be aware of. The week of AOA, I will be at the AOA conference in Minneapolis. So give me a shout out if you want to be there. Maybe you listen, you like. Maybe Davis, you'll actually be at a conference that I'm at. I don't hold my breath for that, but I want to meet in person and just see what's going on with all my people that are trying to make themselves better, trying to have the best possible practices. So let me know if you're going to be there. The other thing that's been on my mind is I don't think it's football season, but it is football season in the sense that school's done. This summer is when every single football team that wants to be great is doing their off-season program hardcore. They're doing their summer workouts and getting ready for the fall. And I just remember that as one of the best times of my life. I still have that mentality of what you have a plan, you do the work, and then you see the results. That was the coolest thing about football is you could have a tangible result. And sometimes it wasn't great. Like you worked so hard and then fell on your face. Like the first in college when I played my first year at St. Joseph College. Awful, horrible, doesn't even exist as a university anymore. Division II college, and it was the hardest practices I've ever had in my life. 3-a-days, full pads before all these restrictions that they had on. And I'm like, I do not know how we can't be great. And we got blown out by like 50 points the first game. I'm like, well, this was not worth it. And then, when I went to Saginaw Valley, complete opposite. We worked in the off season and then we were successful. One year we won like 7-8 games, lost 3. But I remember thinking like no team is working as hard as we are, and then you didn't win the national championship. You know what I mean? Like there's other people out there working harder, working smarter, that are just more talented than you, and I like that. I like that battle, that struggle, and I'm actually coaching football this year, Coopersville High School in Michigan, about 10, 15 minutes north of Allendale, about 15 minutes away from my house. Got connected with some of their people. I'll be coaching the 7th and 8th graders, so nothing too crazy, but it fits my schedule. And I did a camp last night for the start off of the varsity all high school football season for them. Really well run program. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but he will let anyone in the program be part of their high school stuff, and he starts them as early as he possibly can. So by the time they get to the high school level, they know the terminology, they know the plays, they know all that. And that's really cool to see some of the things that we're trying to do as a business translate to the athletic world, right? So I'll be doing that. I'm excited. And that brings up kind of what my topic is today. With me going into coaching, one of the reasons I wanted to do that is I love to, give people hope, educate, and advise. So I like to mentor, right? That's in some hope, educate, and advise is what a good mentor does. And that is something that has been, as I've sat down, honestly, the past year and a half, asking myself, what do I want? What do I enjoy? And it's been the hardest question I've ever had to answer because there's no clear path to where I'm at right now. office is successful. Clinically, I can keep pushing myself there. Running the business, there's a lot of different avenues I can go. From a family life, there's a lot of things I can do as well. And it's a really tough question. So if you go through traction, one of the things is you come up with your core focus, your core values, and all this. And you have to really map that out. And when I did it from my perspective purely. And trying to figure out what I want. And I got the, Hope, Educate, Advise, right? And I know that's what I enjoy. I look forward to it. But it's taken me almost another year to figure out how to apply that, what that looks like in day-to-day life. And as I went to that camp and I'm working with the players, I'm like, this is so much fun. I remember the joy I had when I was doing it. I have, in my mind, insight that I can offer to the players to help them develop. And it's just fun. I love the idea of being part of a team and competing again. One of the things I've been chasing, honestly, for a decade, we have the business. You go, you work as hard as you can in the business, and you want to be successful. But there's no really wins or losses. You're measuring yourself to your own measuring stick, right? With this, I want to win and all, but you're doing more for the kids, trying to develop them, give them perspective, make them leaders. But there's a competition aspect, and there's a tangible result. You win or you lose. I've been searching for that for a while, and I'm glad that I have that back in my life. But one of the things that I would really wanted to focus on when I go into this is how can I make these kids' lives better? How can I have an impact on their lives? And I thought about some of the most important lessons that I've learned in my lifetime, from athletics to running the business. And I think they're applicable to not only, the athletic field, but in our day-to-day lives. And I think these are things that you should ask yourself. So I have 3 to 5 questions. We'll see how many I get to tonight that I think you should ask yourself and really come up with the answers, or not necessarily questions, but words of wisdom, pearls that I've gathered that I kind of want to pass on. If I'm going to give a message, you can only have so many things you can put in these kids' heads. What are the messages that I want to propagate? And number one, for you guys, for us, for the players, what do you want? Really look at that question. And what do you want? Is what you're chasing worth it? Or are you trying to get accolades from someone else? And so much of what we've done in our careers is chasing a goal that someone else has put before us. Like, hey, you got to graduate high school. You got to graduate undergrad. You got to graduate optometry school. All right? Some of us, after you graduate optometry school, are really lost. Well, I have a job. It's a great job. It's not my passion. Or it's not what I thought it'd be, and you're burning yourself out. Or you get to that end journey, and you're like, what do I do next? If you are lucky enough, enthused enough to join a practice, or you join a practice that has a goal, a mission. I think that's one of the coolest things about the associate that I have, is that I don't think she wants to run a practice, but we want to start this amazing dry eye specialty clinic. And she's taking ownership of that, and this is something that we're going to build together, and I love that, right? I think that gives her juice because she wasn't finding that in other places. So what is it that you're chasing? What do you want out of life? Always a good question to ask, and that's going to change. I'll tell you that what I wanted when I first graduated in 2011 to when I got married to when I had my 4 kids to what I want now, all different, right? But you should constantly be checking in yourself, seeing if what you're chasing is what you actually want. Now, if you're changing every other week, every month, every day, I think you really need to work on your skill of discipline. You shouldn't be changing that much, but I think every 2 to 3 years, you might have some different path to follow. So what do you want? Really think about that. And to do that, to know what you want, you need to know what your core values are in life. What do you stand for? And that's the cool thing about figuring out the mentor aspect, the Hope, Educate, Advise, right? That's what I live for. When I look at the core values that we have for the office: care, quality and timeliness, expertise, quality and consistency, and then team aspect. Those are things I really do value and I think are my core values. So I'm living them. I'm like fanatical about those right now. And it's easy to do that when it's really what you believe in. If you are trying to set core values that sound nice and are the mission of like the team or the company or something you read in a book, right? But they're not what you believe in, you're not going to be authentically you. You're not going to be the best you possibly can be. The person that really believes in those things will always be better than you. But if you truly believe in those things, if you think that's how life should be lived, no one's going to compete with you on that. Right? And that's something I think that, with kids at that age, what do you want? What do you believe in? Right? And then it's really hard at that age. I mean, I'm going to be a 42-year-old man here, and I'm telling you that I just figured this out myself, right? I look at the path of my life, and I look at the things that I enjoyed, what I was good at, what I wasn't, and what gave me purpose. Oh, and the core values align with that. But I have, 20 years of looking back and seeing the results. When you're 18, 16 to 18 years old, it's really hard to do, but planting that seed, hopefully in, 20 years from their point right now, they can look back and say, hey, that, what he told me, kind of, I can understand that now. And I bet you in another decade, I'll have a new perspective on this. But think about those, and then here's one of the big ones. And this is the thing that you get asked the question, if you could look back at your 20-year-old self, what would you tell them? Look at your 16-year-old self. What's one piece of advice that you would tell yourself? And what I always fall back on is to take more chances, to go big, right? I wish I would have swung bigger more often in life. The biggest chances I've taken have been my biggest wins, right? And I can think about some big swings I took, and the failures weren't that great. You know what I mean? They weren't that big. They weren't that devastating. I've recovered. I'm here, right? But we get so worried about embarrassment, or we just don't want to feel the pain of taking a risk. I'll tell you that it's going to be painful. That goes with taking the big, take more chances, is you have to be comfortable with pain, right? With it being not fun. So take more risk, but know what that risk is going to bring on. And that if you're not feeling pain, you're not growing. The lure of complacency, of being comfortable, is what's going to stop you from growing to be the best you possibly can. What's going to stop you from taking those chances. And I say it to my staff, I say it to my managers, I think it all the time. You don't grow without pain. And the success you're looking for is behind those hard conversations you're not willing to have, those hard choices you're not willing to make. All the things that you want to do are right there. If it's easy, it's the low-hanging fruit. You already took care of that. Take more risks, embrace the pain. Whether that's on the athletic field, whether that's in the classroom, in life, that's something that I really want to get across to them. You got to go big, right? Don't be afraid to fail. And that pain that you're feeling, if sometimes in a football context, it's physical. In a business context, yes, emotional, physical, everything you can think of. I'm in the biggest phase of growth of my career. Kind of figuring out what I want to do. And I'm really, for the first time ever, managing the business. And it's probably the hardest it's ever been. Right? It was hard when I started. It was hard, when you don't really know what you're doing and you're figuring it out. But now that I kind of have an idea, the burden of knowledge is, how much you don't know. And how much can be done. You're trying to do it all. You're trying to get the team around you. But, waking up at 1 to 3 o'clock in the morning because there's a conversation that needs to be had. Thinking you're going to have to, if you really believe in these core values, you got to get rid of certain people. And then still knowing that not everyone lines up with what you want them to be. and understanding that not everyone's going to be there all the time, but is it good enough, or are you allowing this person to corrupt your culture? It's hard. It's a lot more difficult when you have a bigger business, when you're managing, the clinical side, the business side, more people. Always having the temperature of the room is great, but then you have to do something about it. Much easier to just let it happen, or be a small office and have 3 people and everything falls on your shoulders. I'm actively trying to replace myself right now because I think me in the exam room can be duplicated. Me running the business right now, as I've seen, not many people can do what I'm doing in that sense. And that's what I kind of want to do. It's painful. There's stress, but I'm taking that chance, right? I have a bigger vision. So those things, what do you want? Know what your core values are and be authentically true to them. Take more risks and embrace that pain. You don't grow without pain. And I guess there's one last thing that I'm gonna, 2 things. I'll say them both, and then we'll kind of see where we go with that. One, Steve Prefontaine, one of the best distance runners in American history, would always say to give less than your best is to waste a gift. That's one of the things I always think about. I think about often. And then the other thing is, leave it better than you found it. Like, you're not going to be in certain situations forever. But whenever you go to a situation, you should always leave it better than you found it. It might be one person, one interaction, might be your community. With what I'm looking at, with what I'm doing here in my current office, like, I talked to my wife, who is our community outreach coordinator, marketing manager, and I'm like, hey, I want to do something more. I want something a little bit bigger. I don't know if that's going to be now or later, but I want to have an impact in the community. And the bucket list journal or whatnot, one of the things is, what would you do if X, Y, or Z? And I had like a health thing for kids. I want them to be healthier and focus on that in their life. And that might be through athletics. It might be through nutrition. I don't know what it is, but it's just something like that to set them on a better path of health. I believe in that. I care about that. And that's something that someday I'm not going to be the doctor here in Allendale. I won't have the business. I'll be gone. Did I have an impact? Do they still talk about Dr. Lilly or the business? Cool if they talk about the business, because I know that I'm behind that. But what kind of impact can you have? There's businesses that I remember when I was a kid that would sponsor teams, that would do things. You see like them around everything. I didn't really know the business owners, but you saw the businesses. There's a ton of people in Allendale that are always doing things, sponsoring things. It's a really cool business community that likes to give back. I want to have that impact, right? And then we've been given gifts. Like, if you're listening to this podcast, for no other reason other than you have a purpose to listen to it. You're either going to be an eye doctor, you are an eye doctor, you own a practice, something. You're in a place that not many people are. You're in a place that, because of your hard work, because of your gifts, you have respect. In your community, people are going to want you to be on committees, on boards, because they know you can finish tasks. They know you can accomplish things. They know you have a high ceiling. What are you doing with that gift? When you're in the exam room, are you just doing the bare minimum, getting by, or are you giving that patient everything you got? Making their experience the best that possibly can be, because you're authentically doing optometry like you think it should be done. Right? Life lessons. These are things that I think about often. I think about when I'm going to talk to these kids, but when I was going over, I'm like, this is advice if I had a new eye doctor or a new doctor or a student that wants to go to optometry school. These are things that I would say, these are the things that I can give you. You can apply them to optometry, you can apply them to your whole life, but these are the things that I believe will make you successful and happy. Now I'll recap them for you. What do you want? Know your core values. Take more chances. Embrace that pain. To give less than your best is to waste a gift. Make the most of the opportunities you've been given. Not everything's going to go your way, but still, you are in a place where you can have an impact on a lot of people's lives. That's really cool. Make something of that, and then leave it better than you found it. If you do those things, I don't know how you can't be happy. Right? And that's something that we're searching for in our life. Is, are we happy? Do we have purpose? Answer those questions authentically to you. That might not be in the optometry context. That might be in your, church, in your nonprofit organization that you volunteer at your school, your kid's school. I don't know. But those things can apply to so many different aspects, all aspects of life, in my opinion. Do those things. Think about them. That's my advice. That's my wisdom for the night to you. We'll have more for you next week. Where is the time gone? We are to the closing thought of the episode, and this is what I will leave you. I thought this was a really insightful observation from Socrates. All right? Smart people learn from everything and everyone. Average people from their experiences, and stupid people already have all the answers. Wow. Boom. Where are you on that spectrum? Do you all know all the answers? Not gonna lie to you. First few years of my practice, I had all the answers. Really freaking stupid. Right? Then, I started to have some experience, learn from that. And now I think I'm smart because I realize how little I know. And whether it's a high school football coach, whether it's books that I can read, other business owners, I am constantly trying to get in a room with successful people and pick their brains. And it's not even asking specific to what I'm doing. It's, what are they doing? Why are they doing the things that they do? How can I take that and apply it to my life? Right? I read a book about Tom Moore. He was an assistant football coach in the NFL. And one of the things that he talked about was that he was an offensive coach. And one of his preparation things was he'd have a game plan. NFL plays on Sunday. He'd watch a game at 1 o'clock and at 4 o'clock. If he was traveling on Saturdays, the college games, if he was traveling, he'd watch the 4 o'clock game. If it was, a home game, he'd watch both the 1 and the 4. And he'd have his call sheet and everything he prepared for the game on Sunday. And he'd watch the game and he'd see a situation come up and be like, what play would I call here? What play would I do here? And he was preparing himself in real world live situations, what he would do, and thinking through the process. And I was having a one-on-one meeting with one of my staff members. I'm like, I just read this book. This is what I said, what I did. And that you're out there in optical and there's other people going in there. What you need to do is take it in. When they sit down and you hear a handoff, how would you respond? When they ask a question, what is your answer? How do you start this? You can do the same thing in your life, and that's a football coach. And maybe I'm reaching or stretching, but that's how you can apply it to optometry. Now, I'm trying to get every one of my staff members to learn from each other. Take mental reps. If you hear someone going through a situation, perk up, listen. If they do something that you wouldn't have done, ask why they did that. Make each other better, right? And that's taking something from a completely obscure, random book that I was just reading for joy and entertainment value that I'm applying directly to my day-to-day life, right? What you're looking for is in the world around you. So many people, not everyone, but so many people have already done what you're trying to do. They've written books about it. They have YouTube channels. They have blogs. It's out there. Don't think you have all the answers. Learn from everything and everyone. That's what I have for you. Dr. Lily out.